after lunch session. I hope that you didn't eat too much and are not too tired, because this is going to be super exciting. So within TNG there lies a place which is amazing, because once you get there, you might think that you've seen it all. I've seen drones battling, toy drones that is. I've seen real-time deepfakes of popular and not so popular persons. I've seen robots driving electrical cars autonomously, and also management partners racing. And last but not least, humanoid robots walking their pet dogs. So this is what we call the innovation hacking at TNG. And here we have three participants of that team, three members of the team. David Winderl, who has a very strong background in quantum machine learning and who works on rack-based chatbots in the automotive industry on a daily basis. Then we have Tobias Lübbe. Tobias is an expert at NVIDIA Isaac and CUDA and is working on robotic foundational models. And last but not least, we have Thomas Endres. Thomas is managing partner at TNG. And Thomas is a renowned keynote speaker with a track record of 150 plus and counting keynotes around the globe. He is one of the pioneers of production-grade real-time deep fakes. And he happens to be also the co-founder of the innovation hacking team. And today, well, they're going to teach us something about reinforcement learning, especially show us how to teach a robot to dance. And well, maybe we'll even learn what a dancing policy means for a robot. So please welcome our speakers with a round of applause.
So welcome everybody, and this is our talk today. Let's dance, or teaching your robot some moves, and we're gonna use reinforcement learning for that. So shortly about us, this is David, here's Toby, here's me. And innovation hacking has also been introduced already. It was founded like 13 years ago by two enthusiasts, and today we have a large group of people working on showcases that show what is possible with today's technology, but what has not been integrated into production-grade systems in the industry so far, but what might be interesting for other clients of ours in a few years, maybe. So, our motivation for today will be, what if we just shipped something like, what if we just transferred something like 50,000 euros to China to eventually buy a robot? Then we hear nothing from the company for 3 months, and at some point in time there's a large box in our entrance with some Chinese symbols on it, and there's this cool robot in it, which is pretty neat. And it can walk, it can wave its hand, but what it is not, it's not the life of the party. So it stands around in a corner, just sadly doing pretty much nothing. At some point it waves its hands. So we want it to be the one that fills the dance floor, right? And that's what we're gonna do today, or that's what we want to do today. And there are some others who did this already, so I think this is not that hard. So these robots are natural dancers, so we can do this as well.
Well, natural dancers, you say? I'm not so sure about that. Something can go actually wrong. So, for example, as TNG, we certainly don't want robots slapping kids in the face, or the other stuff also doesn't look too safe for work. Yeah, I don't know if we should do that.
Toby, we did this. We already did this a long time ago. 10 years ago, we did something like that. Teleoperation, where we just did something and the robot just tried to mimic our behavior. And we did this with the Now robot, which is also a humanoid. So how hard can that actually be?
I mean, Thomas, it's laying on the table, it's not standing.
Yeah, that's fine. We're gonna make we're gonna make this work.
Well, yeah. I mean, there are algorithms for that. So one thing that came out in the early 2000s was the idea of like, okay, if I want to stand, I want to have like the weight of my body, or like my center of mass, always between my legs. So if I would tip over this leg, I would fall, and we could just put that into an algorithm. So every time our robot puts a step forward, we try to keep the center of mass of the robot always between his legs. And that has been implemented for the Asimo, and it was able to walk upstairs. Like, Toby, check that out. It's pretty neat.
That's pretty neat, yeah.
Yeah.
We should use that. Do you think we can...
I mean,
maybe not.
Early 2000s, that's essentially Stone Age. So there had been updates on that. It's actually quite cool. What they did at Caltech was this robot, and you can see that it has much smaller feet. It can work much, much better in the lab. And the implementation is actually pretty simple. All you have to do is you have to get the full body kinematics, then you have to bring it to a reduced order model, then you just have to do a nonlinear optimization over what you can actually see from the joints.
Wait, David, I think you lost me somewhere. Oh. This is getting really complicated. Can you just tell me whether this would work for our robot?
There's this other video of like it walking in the park, and it like went over the roots over there. Like, I mean, that's pretty hard, especially with those feet.
That's amazing with the roots. So we should use that, right?
We should.
Okay, maybe not.
Guys. So this is way too complicated. Yeah, all these maths, I don't like that. Let's just take the innovation hacking way. We are just going to use reinforcement learning on that. Reinforcement learning has been working for such robots quite nicely in the past. So here you can see it. See, it also has small feet. It can just walk this path. And you can also do some neat little tricks like kick it and it will not fall over. So it is actually quite robust. So I would say we should stick with reinforcement learning here.
Yeah.
So
all right.
Let's have a quick look at how reinforcement learning works under the hood. So what we have here is we have a robot. This robot is acting in its environment. And it can manipulate its environment, given that it has some motors. It can then work within this environment. And we have an observer, which is also seeing the environment. And then the observer will judge the robot by its actions that it did. And if it did well, then it will reward the robot. And if it did not so well, it will punish the robot. And with that, the robot can then take this feedback to avoid the situations where it is punished and to do the behavior where it is rewarded. And we can actually do some tabling here. So we could just put all of the rewards in a table. So the idea would be, so this is somehow a bit IKEA related, but we will have much more of that later on. So the idea is, if we bring some board that is broken, then our environment will not be happy. If we bring an intact board, then our environment will be happy. So we want to gain some rewards by making our environment happy, and therefore, if we trash the broken board, we will get some reward. If we bring the board that is not broken, we will get some reward, and otherwise we will be punished. And therefore, our model is able to learn how to bring the boards that are not broken.
All right, so that actually sounds less complicated than the model-based approach that was introduced earlier. So that means we can just let our agent randomly explore its environment, write down the rewards, and we're done. So let's take this to the test. And here's another example, which is called the frozen lake example. And we have this grid world of a frozen lake. Each grid represents one state that a robot can be in. And there are two possible ways to terminate this task. One way would be to reach the charging station of the robot, which is the ultimate goal of the robot, and this will be positively rewarded. And the other way is falling down in one of the ice holes. And the robot will get no reward at all for falling in one of those ice holes. And when we now start the algorithm, the robot will try to explore the environment randomly until it reaches the first time, by accident, the charging station. And then it will write down the reward and associate it with the action that was taken to reach this reward. And just like that, the reward gets propagated back into the full state space. So if we start it, we can watch exactly that. So here's the first reward, and this action led to getting the reward, and we can run this over and over and over again, and then this algorithm converges to this knowledge base. So how do we interpret this knowledge base now? For each state that is possible for the robot, we have 4 possible actions, and for each possible state action pair, we write down those values. And those values are called Q values and are basically a quality measurement for taking one specific action in one specific state. So we can pick out one of the states, for example. Let's take this one. And we see that the possible actions are actually scaled by the associated Q values. That's why we don't have any arrow pointing down, because this action will always lead to no reward at all, meaning the arrow is scaled by 0, so it's not visible. And the action with the highest Q value is actually going to the right. And we can now define a policy, a greedy policy, by just always taking the action with the highest Q value. And we can check out what this means for the learned policy. If we now apply this exact greedy policy, the actor actually learned to navigate in this environment quite well, and most importantly, it learned to never, ever go into one of the ice holes. So this is quite neat, and it works quite well.
Yeah, but that's a small environment.
What do you mean?
It's 4 by 4. What if it gets larger? Like 32 by 32,
this
64?
This would get a really, really big table for writing down all those values,
Can we store that in innovation hacking? Or what do we do then?
Guys, there's always a solution to that, and the solution is called neural network. Of course, we could just forget about all the table stuff and things like that, and just use a neural network to find out or to learn what the values for each action in each situation are, and then approximate this using this neural network. So, and somebody already did this. So when we have a huge state space, so for example this one for an Atari game, so we have lots of states that it can be in, because each of these pixels here can be somehow already been shot by the ball, or it can just be intact. And so if we use a neural network, and Google DeepMind did exactly that, we can learn how to navigate this state space, and after some training, it will have learned how to play the game, actually, which is pretty cool already. But if we continue training, it will also learn some neat tricks that only professional players might take, like this one, shooting the ball upwards through a hole, and then just getting a lot more rewards at the same time.
Right. So storing the Q values implicitly and then trained neural network deals somehow with the increased state space. But this agent has quite a small action space, right? It has to go either left or right. That's 2 possible actions. So to say that in IKEA terms, that would be like giving you a huge pile of boards and very ambiguous assembly instructions, and then expecting you to build the perfect furniture.
Could we try that?
Let's try that.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Actually, I make it a bit easier. I have 2 different parts here.
I brought a toolbox.
I would request you to just assemble that, right?
All right, that shouldn't be too hard. So, oh well.
Oh well.
There goes a live demo.
I mean, that's happened before.
That challenge is even too hard for the robot. It fainted, right?
We will fix that in a moment.
Let me first tie that screw in there.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Maybe we should just check if it's still alive.
Okay.
Okay. Let's go on, and the live demo will we'll be there hopefully in a few minutes.
Seconds.
Okay.
We just do a reboot.
Yeah. All right. So what did you want to say, Toby?
Well, this is your assembly now?
Oh, no, sorry, I forgot something. Better? I mean, it holds.
Well, I mean, that's not really what I was expecting.
Oh.
Thomas, you watched carefully, right?
Oh, God.
Can you maybe help David?
Where should I begin? So you should actually not use a hammer for the screw.
Oh, yeah.
So it somehow works, but it will not be ideal. So please use a hex key or something like that, because it's this.
Okay.
Will
Yeah. That sounds more reasonable. I mean, better now?
Maybe you should not do the same. You should not hammer it in, but screw it in.
Oh. Yeah, you can turn it and then it actually. Okay. Yeah.
So you learned something.
That was ambiguous.
Okay.
So
Should I
what
come
do you
and
think,
check?
Toby? Yeah, sure.
It's clearly not finished, but this is a way stronger connection right now. This is actually what I would have expected you to do as a first step. So this worked quite well, and this exactly somehow like modern actor-critic learning methods work. So the learning challenge, is now split up into two networks. The first one would be the actor that just picks out one action and performs it on the environment, which will result in a reward signal. And the other network just watches and tries to learn with the long horizon reward in mind. And this second network, which is called the critic, will then be able to teach the actor network to assemble the furniture in this example correctly. And in the learning architecture, this looks something like that. So first of all, we have the actor network that directly maps the state space into an action. And now we have to train this network somehow. And training just on a reward signal is possible in principle. But in modern reinforcement learning scenarios, those rewards are often very sparse. And therefore, we again use something similar to the deep Q learning that Thomas introduced earlier. And in deep Q learning, we can learn how to produce a much denser Q value compared to the reward by just watching the actions and the states that have been achieved. And just like that, we have an actor-critic network. So the actor would be the equivalent to David assembling the furniture, and the critic would be Thomas watching him and guiding him.
Yeah. So the question now is, where can we take this? And there has been a company that you probably all know that has done this quite excessively. So this has been OpenAI, and OpenAI just built a reinforcement learning system on a very ambiguous state space, namely Dota 2, which is a game that I don't understand and probably nobody will ever understand. But there's a lot going on here, and with just a few thousand years of gameplay and 128,000 CPUs and 256 GPUs, they built like 5 agents that could actually defeat the world champions in this game. So we thought, okay, let's do this. Let's just try out reinforcement learning on our robot. Yeah, right? We can do this. Let's do it.
I feel like we are in a similar situation right now.
Actually, yes. You can fix those, right? I mean, you did it today.
Yeah, but it was very stressful, and I don't want to do that all the time.
Fair. I mean, then one thing we can do is we can actually place him into simulation, because if he then falls down, it's not in one of our stages, but it still looks hilarious. And yeah, the program we used here is called Isaac Sim. And as everything, Isaac Sim has a wrapper around or from our robot manufacturer, Unitree. So you can actually train your reinforcement learning policies in Isaac Sim, test them in Mujoku, and then you can actually deploy them to a physical device to see if it works. And this is how the code looks like. So essentially, we would have like a terrain, which is a plane, because we just have office floors, and then we would just load the like the robot from like a specific file or robot configuration the manufacturer gave to us. And with that, we can make it a ragdoll, but a ragdoll itself is pretty boring. So one thing we can actually do is we can make it learn how to stand. And the way how we do that is we just tell it to keep his hips like above the ground. Don't be too high, don't be too low, and please don't like bend over in a weird way. And yeah, we also limited to not stand on one leg, but we wanted to make it stand on 2 legs. And that's the code, how you can actually do it. So it's a configuration again. What you would do is you would just have like a reward term where you compute the pelvis height error with like a weight of -10. And then we say it like it should be around 80 centimeters on the floor. And then we have like here the reward term with like a negative reward to actually get the tilt. And then we can put that into simulation, and you can see the robot falling again. But after like 3,000 episodes, you can actually see that the robot stands. And he learned the strategy to stretch out his legs, so he's more robust to the sides. And after 3,000 iterations more, we can actually see that it doesn't fall anymore. So that's pretty neat. We have a result.
Wow.
Wow.
Cool.
I mean, it can stand, and I looked at this video for 2 minutes, and trust me, it can stand. But that's not everything.
Okay, so so far it learned how to balance itself while being static, but for dancing on the long term, we need the robot to balance itself also while moving. So that would be the next task, and we again have to formulate that into reward terms. So we have to tell it, please be upright, please walk into the correct direction, and maybe walk like a human. So don't jump around, don't tip over, and so on. And we can do that just like this. So first of all, we have to define a reference trajectory that we want the robot to move in, and we can do this just by uniform randomization of a trajectory vector, and then we define our learning reward by just computing the difference of the actual velocity of the robot compared to the reference velocity. And the higher the difference is, the higher will be the negative reward here. So it will be punished if it doesn't follow the reference trajectory. And if we take that to the learning environment, this looks something like that. So here we can see the blue arrow is the reference velocity, and the green arrow is the actual velocity. And this is not yet aligned. But it's nice to see that the blue arrow actually scales with velocity. So if the robot falls down, the arrow gets a larger magnitude. And if we train that further on, the 2 arrows start to align better. But at least I don't walk like that. It's doing very janky movements with the hand. But we can just continue training. And then it gets better and even better. Still not perfect, but the arrows align a lot. And if we, again, train for the double amount of time, this looks a lot more natural. So it's actually doing the arm movements like I would do when walking.
Yeah, the thing is, we still want the robot to learn how to maybe not use the arms. So maybe not do something like this to stabilize itself, because we as a human also don't do that, right? We can grab a cup of coffee and still walk around. And this is something that we want the robot also to learn. So the idea would be to not use your arms all the time, right?
Yep. And how we do that is essentially we give it just random arm movements during training. We do that again by separating, like getting once the full body, which we can completely control, and then give it like the lower body, which the robot can control. We do that in this action config. And then the next thing we do is we can then play on the upper part, so on the elbow, shoulder, and wrist, just random arm movements, which the robot just like plays back. And yeah, with that, after a long while of training, we can actually see that the robot can now walk in simulation and move his arms independently by whatever we play back on them.
Yeah. So the arm movements here are just randomized movements, and we could do anything while the robot is walking around. Okay, so what you saw here was just the best parts of everything that we did while training, but there were, of course, some things that did not go as planned. So, for example, if the robot falls down and we have this reward term that the pelvis should be at a specific height, there might be some behavior which is unexpected, like the downward facing dog, the yoga pose that it does. And this is actually something that we observed. So if we just have a look at this robot here, it fell down, it tries to get up again, and it does that. So the rewards are there, everything works perfectly, but this is not what we wanted, right? The second thing that we had is something where we just said, okay, walk in this direction. And the robot thought, okay, I'm still too slow for that. And instead of walking faster, it thought, okay, let's do a bunny hop, because this is pretty fast. Of course, then at the end I will fall down, but at least I'm fast on the way. And this is exactly what you see here. So it is not as easy as you see in the reward terms, but rather the reward terms in the end look something like this. So that's actually a lot of work to get it just to walk around, right? So now, what if we don't just want to let it walk around, but what if we really want it to dance? And dancing is unfortunately a bit more complicated than walking around, because instead of just having rewards all the time, we now need time-specific rewards. So at each and every step, we need to make different movements, and those need to align with the dancer. This is pretty hard to explain in a policy.
Do you think so? I think we can just play it back and explain to each other. It's not too complicated.
It's complicated.
You think so?
Yeah.
Shall we try it?
Well, let's try that. Let's try it. So we cannot face each other, right?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, and I will just explain to you.
Yeah.
Okay. Please, first, raise your arm. Raise your other arm. Turn around. Turn the other arm around. Put your hand on the shoulder.
Okay.
Other shoulder.
Okay.
Okay, and now to your head. What's wrong,
what are you
Thomas?
doing here?
We're dancing,
just turn around. Just turn around.
Oh.
I think something went wrong.
Wait,
Maybe you might be right. It's not the best choice.
Yeah, I can tell you how you can do it more easily. Just face each other.
Okay.
Okay.
So, and now don't try to explain. Just do the dance.
You think this will work?
Yeah, right.
Okay. Oh,
I can now see your movements.
this works well.
Yep.
It's the wrong dance, but it's working.
Well,
Okay, you're
not
right.
everyone is a born dancer.
So the idea is to come up with something where you can just show the robot what it has to do. So we will just take a video of the dancing human, and the robot will imitate us, and this can be done by imitation, I mean, by really imitating the human.
Yeah. And the first question we have to ask ourselves now is, how do we get the body into, or like a body from a camera to actually a human? And luckily there are neural networks for that. So essentially we just first film someone Then we extract the skeleton, create a mesh out of the skeleton, tune that to the proportions of the person, and then we can just film the person over and over again and get a lot of movements out of the box. And if we go to the next slide, we can actually see that. So, well, live demos. We have a camera here, and the camera is now facing on Thomas, and hopefully not on the public. Yes. And we can now see that we have Thomas moving here, and we can see that we have this gray mesh, and if I probably go on the stage, yes, it will take over for me. You can see that the gray mesh, which is me now, just copies my movements however I want to do them, and I can't dance, so I can't perform that. So the next logical thing is to just take the joint angles we have and put them on the robot, which looks weird. So if I raise my arms, you can see that the robot is somehow not following. So we still have a problem here. And the problem is essentially that if we are a puppet player playing a puppet, and we switch the puppet to another robot puppet, and we would use the same strings, we just couldn't play the puppet with the same motions. So the thing we have to do is we actually have to measure our puppet, we then have to measure our robot puppet, and then retie our strings. And in the end, we have this beautiful dancing robot puppet. And there are algorithms for that, which actually are not neural networks, but they can solve that pretty neatly. So if we wait for a second.
Neatly.
Sometimes it's odd. Well,
yeah, maybe there's too many people standing there.
Yeah, there are probably too many people standing there.
It's inverse kinematics, and if any
So
of you
essentially,
ever
we
did,
solved the inverse kinematics of it, and it's a little bit jerky. Maybe you can see my arm movements.
we can also try to reinitialize. Maybe if you stand directly and alone in front of the camera,
And we try that again.
it will work better. No, it buffered the last pose. So.
Oh, well. But you can see that if I'm moving my arm, the robot moves it now in the correct position, even though it's... I don't know what this is.
It's a bit weird. It worked better before.
Yes. All right. Neat. So
what did we do? So we just thought, OK, this is a neat technique. So now we just need to record some data. And here you can see two things. So we can first took a camera and recorded a dance. And here you can see that our interns really cannot dance. But they are trying their best. And this is such a beautiful dance that we thought, OK, let's put that on the robot. And therefore, we now want to put this into our simulation environment, right? We want to have at each and every point in time, we know exactly where each and every angle should be and in which direction it should go. And we can just put this into a file, and then we can just load this file. And there we have our wanted movements, so wherever we want to move. And then we have our reward term, and this will basically just be the difference between the desired angles and the desired velocities, and at the same time we can just take the actual values and learn from that. And if we put that into our simulation environment, then we will get something like this. So now it's not one coordinate system, not one arrow or something like that, but multiple for the orientation of each and every angle that we get. And as you can see, this is not working very well at the beginning. Of course, we are still falling down and trying to learn. At some point, the dance will somehow be a bit more obvious. And if we train that for a longer time, then you can see that the deviation between the real dance and the dance that we learned is not that big anymore. So, without further ado, let's just put that into our real world.
Oh, not again, Thomas. So, yeah, putting a robot after training directly into the real world is actually a very prominent problem, and we are facing the sim-to-real gap here. And the real world actually introduces a lot of implications to the robot that are not present in the simulation. Of course, you can try to get the simulation closer to the real world, but you will never match it exactly. So there are environmental factors in the real world that are not present in the simulations, and oftentimes also the terrain or even the slippiness of the floor is just different in the real world. That means before we really want to take it to the real world, I'm sorry to have to stop you here, Thomas. We have to do some safety precautions, and there are very professional systems for that. So, for example, we could use at least 5 3D cameras, and we could use several safety harnesses. We could also use a software safety layer to just track the robot movements in real time and then stop. What's wrong?
Isn't there a cheaper solution to that?
No, I think there's not.
I mean, I learned how to do screws. I can also just get some plywood, and we could build
Let's
it.
do that.
That sounds sketchy.
It is, but I mean, we reinforced it. So what we essentially did was we actually just got plywood. We had like those 2 feet, then we reinforced them to the sides, and then we had like those things so that the gallows won't fall to the sides, and then we hung our robot there so it won't fall anymore.
But it has a slight French touch to it, doesn't it?
It has.
Okay, but let's try.
Yeah.
So here we're bringing the dance that we have seen earlier to the real robot, and to be fair, the solution works quite well. So the robot is safe against falling down, and it also has quite some free space to walk around. And our intern is here trying to really test the robustness of that, and the robot is still safe, which is good, but our employees are not. So if you watch closely, he gets stomped on his foot very hardly. But yeah, at least the robot is safe, let's say that. And this works in real quite well, so we can level up and try to learn something harder. So this is already a learned policy on, I think it's a Fortnite dance. And you can see that the movements are quite hectic. So it will be interesting whether this works in real as well. And here's the result.
Yeah, it's okay.
It's okay. I mean, it still stands.
Yeah, but you can already see that there are some physical constraints in the real world that might not be present in the simulation, right?
But the gallows hold. The
gallows did hold, and this is pretty nice. At least the robot's safe, right?
Yeah. So.
I wasn't the biggest fan of the gallows solution, but the only thing that broke in this chain is actually a part that came with the robot by the original manufacturing. So props to David, the gallows work amazing. So we stick to that. And if we do such harder experiments on our robot, this introduces a lot of wear and tear to the robot. So if you have been here last year, the robot was driving a cart, which is actually very, very hard on the joints of the robot. And today the robot was dancing all the time, which is also very intensive for the robot. And in the meantime, David likes to do construction work with the robot, so somebody had to put up the gallows, right? And yeah, so the robot starts to deviate more and more from the simulation, and we actually had to face a lot of hardware issues. For example, here is one of the robotic actuators, and you can see that 2 of the 3 cables that connect to the wiring of our motor just burned through, and also the gearings don't look too good anymore. And there are actually 2 ways how to face the problem of the robot deviating from the simulation. And the first way would be to just randomize the actuator gains in the simulation, and like that, the robot will learn to generalize over different states of wear and tear of the robot. And the other way would be to repair the robot, which is done more or less professionally. We are a software consulting company, right? So we don't have the perfect hardware shop in our office. But sometimes we can do a little repairs on our own. Also, we had this problem, and this was actually this morning. And yeah, here, this thing broke. It's like a torn ligament on a human. I had that myself, so I can totally understand why he's getting those problems. But I already checked. That's not what is broken right now. It's just a network issue. And we repaired that, and it works. But sometimes repairing is not enough, and we actually need to get original replacement parts.
Yeah, and by the way, can you come up with a cost estimate of how much such a wrist motor actually costs? 15,000? Not as much. 2,500 each. So, and this is just such a small part.
Yeah,
so
we just for electric actuator, it's way more than the manufacturing costs, of course. And it's also quite hard to get our hands on this in Europe. But we managed to get some, and we reinstalled it, and just like that, the robot behaves more like the simulation again, and then Sim2Real works again.
Yeah, and then we can train on something like this cool walk of this boxer, and yeah, it can really walk around pretty much the same way, which looks really cool, and we can even do some of the kickboxing moves like this one, which is quite nice. And since it came all the way from China, we thought also that this robot needs some cultural appropriation, and therefore we have taught it to Schuhplattl.
And at this point, we maybe have to give a shout out to Baptiste, who's sitting up front here. He did most of the work. He was an intern, and we are happy to have him here today.
All right, so now that we trained our robot how to do a dance, we also want it to not just do one dance. So up until now, we have trained one policy for one dance, but what we really want to do is we want to have him follow us, so follow our movement and do the dances with us, so that we don't only have one dance, but a multiple of these dances at the same time, and we can just play them back or just adjust to our movements, right?
Yeah. And the issue with that is that training those takes some time. So if you would record one of your poses, you would have to wait like a few hours up until like a whole night to actually train them. And then you're not 100% sure if your robot works, and you have like all of this wear and tear. So it would be nice if there would be something that's more general. So if you would just like take, similar as for like a chatbot, a lot of motions, place them into one model, and then play them back over and over again. And that had been done. It's actually research from 2025. And essentially what they did is they took a lot of motions, then they all placed them into one model, and then they just played them back. And like all of those motions are just live playbacks of the robot, which then you can do dancing, you can have like agile skills and locomotion. And now would be the time for our live demo, but I think there is this issue that our computer actually broke down.
Oh, yeah, I said it's a network issue, but
it's a device issue.
So there's nothing wrong with the robot. The computer just is dead. Yeah, so okay, sorry about that.
So we're going to finish the talk, and then we'll try to set up the demo. And if it does not work, then please come to the booth. All right, we can just do the next one.
Yeah, and just like David told us earlier, there are those general models now, foundation models for humanoid movements, and we can actually take the human that was needed so far in videos or in live retargeting out of the loop and just use a generational model that generates human movements or human trajectories based on a prompt, and then we can just put in a prompt how the robot should move, and this is, of course, a very professional prompt, and then the robot does the according movements. And this is where we're heading right now, and we try to always be upfront when trying out new stuff.
All right, so the only thing that's left now would be the demo, but we can also do some questions, and maybe we can try to bring the computer back to life.
Okay. So thank you. I also just realized that when I was a teenager, I had to undergo some form of reinforcement learning dancing at the local discotheque.
All right, that was a really good talk. I was wondering, in the walking model, whether you sort of train it from go to A to B. Is there also like a constraint on the energy used? Because obviously humans would walk as energy efficient.
It's energy on the actual motors itself, and you can scale the velocity in which, like, how fast you walk. Yes.
Sorry, so you like minimize the energy consumption as well?
You could do that. I think there we were like more like in a POC stage, so we were more like, hey, does it actually work? But yes.
All right, thank you.
Up from there.
Coming.
Hi, thank you for this nice talk. My question was also again about your reinforcement learning about walking. I quite didn't get why you only restrict on like height of the hip. When I think about walking, height of my head makes more sense to like keep track. But maybe you had an maybe you already tried this, or maybe you had some reason not to do that.
No, I think like the main point was that the manufacturer did it, and we just like went with that as a first guess.
Yeah, there should have been reasons. So one thing could be that if you run around, then maybe your head is not closely tied to this height or something like that. But actually,
I mean, your center of mass is here, so
yeah,
makes more sense.
Yeah, you could use the center of mass. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there are multiple ways how to do these reward terms, and there's no right or wrong. In the end, it's what works best.
To me, it looked a bit like a kid learns to walk and so on. If you consider like the iterations and so on, and that brought me to the next thought of like we want to bring that to industry applications. How do you avoid that the same thing happen? And it's like with a kid, it sees the ball on the other side of the street and starts running and forgets everything learned before. If you have a robot out now in a factory, how do you avoid that the robot totally gets out of the actual work because something else is triggered and does something totally unusual?
Yeah, I would say you have a specific policy. So what we did was reinforcement learning. There are new techniques where you can also do some more generalistic policies. So something where you can really follow a prompt or something like that. So the robot foundation models that we talked about in the talk before the lunch break. And these are more capable of grasping more complex situations, I would say. For the reinforcement learning thing, the main thing is that they are just following these rewards, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I was just wondering, are there any limitations on the robot itself? How much bandwidth or storage capacity or computing power or on board, what it cannot do physically from the model?
The main limitation is probably time. So you cannot scale your model as big as you want because you need to have the inference time like quite shortly. So I think with Sonic, the demo we wanted to show you, it's at 50 hertz. And you cannot have like something like a large language model, obviously. So, but typically those models actually work quite nice.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have time for one more question. Yes.
I actually would have two questions, but let's move the one to later. So the training actually reminded me of the early days of generative AI, where we had the where to actually generate an image from a prompt, you would have to actually train a model. You remember maybe because you only had the image classification models, and to generate an image, you actually had to reverse that by brute forcing, more or less. These foundation models obviously kind of are presented as next step, where you essentially do a single step instead of doing reinforcement learning training. In what way could you you showed this that comes from a prompt, but wouldn't it make more sense to first go from kind of a walk plan or some kind of movement plan to actually the execution of that movement? Instead of just directly going from prompt to movement, rather than you would rather have something like this movement plan you got from the dancing to the actual actuator movement?
I mean,
like take a smaller slice out of this planning.
I mean, that's the whole idea. The whole thing we did for now was balancing it. So if I'm standing here, I'm not thinking about if I have to fall forward or backward.
Yeah.
And then for like this prompt to, I think we have it on the last slide. And I think we have a live demo.
Wait a second. I think we're on a good way.
Yeah. Yep. So if you would go from this prompt to the actual robot like dancing, you would have like something that generates the motion, and then you have something that plays back the motion.
Yep. So I would say we are on a good track for this to happen. So the newer foundation models that we have can really go that way. And to be honest, we'd have, so they are pretty new, so we'll have to look at the internals of how they work. So this is just the outlook for now.
Thank you very much.
Okay, maybe there's a possibility to do the live demo. Can somebody hold the robot, please? I'm scared.
We're not there yet. Okay. The one thing we actually have to do is we don't want to use the old retargeting, so I'll just like restart the demo and we'll check if that still works. Yep.
Is it dangerous where I'm sitting?
I think you're good.
You're fine. You'll be fine. I'll just kick you. Okay,
that always happens.
It is mimicking me. No, is it?
No.
Yeah. Yeah, it's stretching. Okay. I see the camera blinking.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yep. All right. So.
No pressure and things like that?
No. I'm not feeling any pressure right now. Can you put out your arms? Yeah, looks good. All right. And the last thing I want to do is I want to disappear from the stage.
Should it work now?
Okay.
Okay.
Can you start in the same pose as the robot?
Yeah.
And then
I'll try.
I will activate it. Yeah.
Okay. Does it work? Live demos.
No, it's not receiving any signal.
All right, that's sad.
So sorry about that. And
nope.
I think that's it.
And by the way, a huge shout out to Luca and Benno, who have been working on the robot quite a lot and have repaired it multiple times.
All right, thank you for attending. And if there are any more questions, please do not hesitate and just come to us and ask.